Amazing. So welcome everybody to this week's Reawaken and Rediscover free weekly session. It is March 27th, 2023 for those of you that are listening to this in the future. For those of you that this is your first time on one of these calls with me, I do this every single week for free to contribute to you in accessing more of what you know is possible, more of yourself, and just to like reawaken and rediscover really you with the tools of access consciousness. So during this call and all the other calls that I've already done, I'll be using the access consciousness clearing statement. Basically, it's a magic wand that shifts and changes the energy of what's sticking you, what's stopping you from actually creating beyond what you're currently choosing in your life. So that is right and wrong, good and bad, pod and poc, all names, shorts, boys, povers, and beyonds. You don't have to understand it for it to work. But you can go to theclearingstatement.com for more information. So amazing. So as you guys are probably aware, this week I have a topic, some weeks I do. And the topic for this week is having, I think I wrote have ease with having your voice. There you go. See, I don't even remember. There was a number of questions that people have sent in over the last few weeks about showing up, being seen, particularly in regards to business. And I just thought, let's talk about that. So feel free to put up your hand or pop any questions you have in the chat box for those of you that are on live. And I'm just going to start talking to the questions that were sent in. And if you want to add anything, please just let me know. Or if you have any specific questions, please let me know. And I love you guys to engage as much as you desire in these Zooms as well to see where we can get to. So this whole idea of like showing up, being seen, having your voice is such a big thing that like brings up a lot for so many of us. And I was saying before we started recording, this was like one of those topics for me that I actually didn't have ease with, even though it may have seemed like I had ease with. And so many people say to me, like, it seems like you've always had ease with like showing up and being seen. But the thing is, I might show up and be seen on camera or on these Zoom calls or, in classes. But then the dis-ease that I actually experience with this topic is like after the call, after the class. It was this constant seeking of validation to prove my worth as a facilitator. So I actually didn't have much ease showing up and being me because I'd constantly judge myself, judge my worth based on literally the results I created external to me, meaning the number of people in my classes, the number of people that validated that that was a great call. And if no one validated the call, then I decided that I was a shitty facilitator. And a lot of you have probably heard me talk about this before, and this has dynamically changed with the tools of Right Voice for You, since gifting myself information that I think so many of us are missing. So when we talk about your voice is actually not so much your physical voice. And so many of us believe that our voice is our physical voice. It's what we say. Then so many of us believe that having our voice is actually posting on social media like 100 times a week. And what if that's also not having your voice? And I can hear so many of you go, thank God, because I don't enjoy showing up or posting on social media anyway. But your voice to me is actually the brilliance you already be, not what you think you need to be or do better. And how many of you already, with maybe this unwillingness to show up or this space that it's not super easy for you to actually show up in front of people, it's actually the brilliance that you already are. It's not what you have to change. And this is, I want to like reiterate, this is like the number one thing that's actually going to allow you to have ease with showing up, because what if there's nothing that needs fixing? And what if there's nothing that needs to be done better? What if having your voice was actually the willingness to like yourself enough to get that your voice is actually a gift and contribution in the world, and what you desire to invite people to, or what you desire to speak to, or what you have to say actually literally enriches the entire world. So everything that is, and everything that doesn't allow you to truly like yourself enough to know that your voice is a gift and total contribution to the world, will you destroy and uncreate that times a gazillion? Oh my gosh. Wow. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all names, shorts, boys, povers, and beyonds. So having your voice is actually really this willingness to include you in the world. And when you're not willing to be seen, when you're not willing to speak to what you know, when you're not willing to show up in your business and invite people to what you're offering, you're not actually including you in the world. So it's this willingness to include you in the world, and it's receiving of the world around you, but not just receiving it, it's allowing you to actually be part of the world. And how many of us believe that you being part of the world is a detriment, or it's a greater contribution, you not putting yourself out there, or not it's almost this energy of wasting people's space or wasting people's time.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a from someone. So really, this idea of having a voice is really the willingness to actually never make anybody else's reality greater than yours. And what if you were willing to never make anybody's reality greater than yours? Because how many of you, with this energy of you not willing to actually speak to what you know or put yourself out there or promote yourself, do you realize that you've already made everybody else's realities and everybody else's presumed points of view about you, or everybody else's potential future judgments about you, greater than what you know is possible? So everything this is, and all of the possible future judgments or presumed points of view that others have of you, that you're making greater than inviting people to what you know is possible to create in the world, will you just try and uncreate that times a gazillion? Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, or name, shorts, boys, povids, and beyonds. And Viola just said, what if nobody is interested in what I have to say? This is the objection that comes up. Exactly. And this is cool because Viola, you actually sent in a question that I want to actually get to now, that I'm just going to read out quickly, which I get is not just Viola. So you were saying I'm exploring being me and showing up as me in business. And I feel I only have scratched the surface of that. And I notice I retract and hide as if I'll be caught and accused of being a fraud. I would love to find my true voice and go all out. Do you have any suggestions? So my question to all of you on here right now, whether you have a business or not, is what is your point of view about you? And how have you already decided you'll be received in the world? So what is that for you? You can pop it in the chat or you can unmute yourself, whatever you want to do. But what is your point of view about you? And what have how have you already decided you'll be received in the world? We've got, I will
a lot of judgment about
Oh, you might have to pop it in the chat, Vishima, because it's the connection's not very good. So the point of view of not being received, not as valuable as others, yeah, not fully received, only by a few. Failure, I'm not the way people want me to be, ideally, worthless, not good enough. Oh, boring. Okay. So I don't have that much to share. Cool. So everything this is times a gazillion, will you destroy and uncreate it, please? Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, or name, shorts, boys, povids, and beyonds. We've got, I'm an interference. I'm just repeating what other people are better at articulating. Wow. So do you get and it would not work anyway, and then I doubt that I'm a contribution at times. Okay, so do you get that if your point of view creates your reality, or you've already decided how you'll be received in the world, then this is literally what shows up. And the thing is, you will only look for those situations and those people that actually match your already projected point of view, or the decision and conclusion you've already come to. And you will not actually be able to receive anything beyond that. The interesting thing is, do you actually all get that the only reason we won't truly allow ourselves to be seen is to avoid a judgment we have of ourselves? To literally avoid people proving that the judgment we have of ourselves is real and true. And how many of us avoid this more dynamically than almost anything else? Because if you didn't have a judgment of you, you wouldn't actually give a shit what anybody thought of you. and you'd be willing to say what was, invite people to everything you knew. So we actually do it to avoid a judgment we already have of ourselves or to protect ourselves. And oftentimes it's to protect ourselves from losing something. So the only reason we have this like resistance to showing up is because you've already decided how people react and what their judgment will be based on the judgment you have of yourself. Yeah, it's total insanity, and we all do it. So all the judgments and points of view you have about you that you are expecting and projecting the world around you, will you destroy and uncreate that times a gazillion? Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all names, shorts, boys, povits, and beyonds. And my question to all of you is, what judgment of you are you avoiding? What judgment of you are you avoiding? And what have you decided you will lose if you show up as you? What have you decided you'll lose? Blank. And this is what's really, really interesting, because so many of us make it about avoiding the judgment we don't desire to receive, avoiding other people's judgments of ourselves, without actually recognizing that the thing we're often so unwilling to lose is all the lies and inventions we've told ourselves. Because how many of you, like every judgment you have of you, like everything you all just wrote in the chat box before about what you've decided people will receive, like how you've already decided people will receive you, do you get that that is a total invention and lie? Judgment is actually not real. If animals can't perceive it, it's not real. So this is the thing about this conversation about having your voice, because so many people focus on, how do I go beyond the judgments people have of me? How do I actually receive their judgment with ease? How do I not care what other people think of me? But the thing is, how much receiving of other people's judgments and of other people's adoration of you do you resist to never find out what you're actually capable of? How many of you are unwilling to give up the judgments you have of you and everything you've decided will happen if you show up, to literally avoid receiving what you're actually capable of? And this is the interesting thing, like with this question, let me just go back to it. Find the question again. And Viola, if you have anything else you want to add, but with that, I'm exploring being me and showing up as me in business. I feel I only have scratched the surface of that. And I notice I retract and hide as if I'll be caught and accused of being a fraud. You want to ask yourself, is that actually true? Or is that the perfect reason and justification I use to hold a point of view about me in place, or to keep me from receiving everything I'm capable of? To keep me from actually seeing myself.
Yeah, it's a perfect justification. Perfect alibi.
You're like, it's so perfect that we talk about this in this reality. Like there is this thing of like being a fraud and the imposter syndrome. Like it's a massive conversation in this reality, but really like when I look at it, it's like how much of this idea of the imposter syndrome is literally the perfect reason and justification we use to never find out what we're actually capable of. To never actually receive ourselves. And this is the other question I want to get you guys to start asking yourself is, ask yourself, truth, am I willing to see myself? Am I willing to receive myself? Because the other part of this conversation for me is like, what if it's actually not about other people seeing you? And like, how much energy do we use about like this fear of like what other people will think of us, or other people seeing us, or we don't want them to think a certain way or have a certain judgment of us? But what if this is actually about the willingness to see yourself? Seeing your greatness, knowing your gifts. What greatness are you actually hiding? Not so much from the world, but from you. And this is what I really had to start looking at, because I have been through this literally so much. Like I was saying, when I become a certified facilitator, there was all of this stuff that come up for me, all of this stuff that I was like, I really wanted to like literally know exactly what I was going to say. It's like, can I just have notes all over my computer? Can I literally not show up? Can someone tell me what to say to be validated in the correct way? And I realized like this unwillingness to be seen actually had nothing to do with other people's judgments. It was my unwillingness to actually receive the adoration people had of me. Because if I was actually willing to show up as more of me, if I was willing to invite people to what I knew, you will not have people actually being grateful for you. And the most excruciating thing for me was actually literally people receiving me, was the adoration and the gratitude people actually had. Because when people receive you, you cannot not begin to receive more of yourself. So everything this is, and everywhere you're avoiding receiving your greatness and receiving yourself, and actually seeing everything that is phenomenal about you and gifting that to the world, rather than gifting everything you've decided is wrong with you to the world, will you destroy and uncreate that times a gazillion? Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all names, shorts, boys, perverts, and beyonds. It's totally cringy. It's like totally cringy, because the thing people avoid more dynamically than almost anything else is actually having and seeing themselves. Because literally, if just for example, like if we're talking about this business thing, if we're talking about having your voice, and if you started putting yourself out there, if you started to speaking to what you know, if you started having ease with promoting yourself and actually showing up in front of people, and all of a sudden, all of these people started being grateful for you, and all of a sudden you started getting all of these messages of adoration, and all of these people that then started wanting to stalk you. I'm like taking it a bit further, but I'm just saying, like, how challenging would it be to maintain the judgments you have of yourself, the lies that you're telling yourself? It would be extremely challenging when you're in this really shit place and judging how wrong you are and judging how shit you are at business. It would be very challenging to like maintain that if you had 10 messages a day or 10 messages in that hour saying, I'm so freaking grateful for you, you've just changed my life. Right? And you're all like, oh, I don't even want to hear this, because like now I can't literally, like, I can't not know this. For those of you that don't know me as a facilitator, I kind of just go straight to the point. I'm like, we don't need to beat around the bush. Let's just go straight to the thing that's actually stopping you from having ease with this. So Vicky says, so what was excruciating about seeing yourself and how did you deal with it and get over that? I'd like to see me. I wonder what that's like. So how I dealt with it and got over actually like the willingness to see myself was actually beginning to recognize that I'm actually a gift. Beginning to literally recognize that my voice was not what I say. Because this is the thing, particularly if you're showing up in front of people online, how much do you determine your value based on the thing you said? Did it sound good enough? Did I say something that nobody's heard before? Did I receive this reaction from the crowd of like, yes, that was amazing. Like that was worth my time showing up. And so how I started going beyond that is I started to recognize that it actually wasn't what I say that's the gift. It's the brilliance that I'm actually being. It's what I'm being that's literally inviting the world to a completely different possibility. And this is the thing, you all have something, you all have a way of being that is different, that is literally your voice. And if you're willing to recognize and acknowledge that, this is actually what then starts to change it. Because instead of then looking at, okay, did I say that thing right? Did I get that right? It was, wait a second, I be brilliant. And so as an example, my voice, one of my voices is the ease I have in the world, is the ease I have with kind of everything around me. Most people recognize that. And this is the thing, your voice is the brilliance you're already being, that just by being in other people's space, just by literally posting a graphic, just by posting something online, just by being around that group of friends, your being is literally communicating with their being and inviting them to a greater possibility. But the thing is, because you be it, and it's not a doing, you don't recognize it. And oftentimes they don't recognize or acknowledge it. So you just go, oh, well, if I didn't say the thing, then I mustn't be of value. And so what I realized is me just having my voice and having ease with business, with money, with all these different things, it literally invites people to a different possibility. And I really wasn't willing to recognize that until about a year ago. And really, particularly since I sent a survey out, which most of you are probably aware, in December, just saying, I want to know what's up for you. Like, what do you desire me to speak about more of? And then there was just this section that said, anything you'd like to add. Or there was, anything you'd like to add. And so many people actually wrote, like, you invite me to a level of ease I didn't know was possible. And I was like, what? I haven't even really done a call on ease. And I was like, holy shit, like that's my voice. So it's like, what are you all already being? That is literally the gift that you actually are to the world. That if you're willing to acknowledge it, would literally allow you to show up and be seen. And so Viola said, did you ask something like, what is my brilliance? So the question I asked, and I have mentioned, I can't remember where I mentioned this, but I started asking, like, what do I uniquely know that nobody else knows, that if I was willing to acknowledge it, would invite the world to greater possibility? And what do I uniquely know that nobody else knows, that if I was willing to acknowledge it, would allow me to be the pull that nothing and no one can resist? And from that point on, I literally started noticing myself talking to things that I wasn't talking about, like talking to before. And I started noticing not even really me change, but actually the way people acknowledge me change. And all these people started actually showing up and messaging me and being like, thank you for the thing you just did 2 years ago that changed my life. And so it was really interesting because when I started to actually ask that question and start to acknowledge, what do I uniquely know? People started messaging me. People started actually acknowledging like the gift that I was being in their world. So going back to like Vicky's question is like to start asking like what that question that I just said, and also like, what is the gift of me? Universe, show me. Because the thing is like, what if really this whole thing about going beyond hiding and having ease with being seen, what if you stopped looking outside of you for how to change that? What if you stopped looking to everybody else? What if you started like flipping that and going internal and going, okay, am I willing to see myself? Am I actually willing to receive myself? Am I willing to adore myself? And this whole seeing yourself thing, like it's not linear, it's not cognitive. But really this whole like idea of seeing yourself is like, are you willing to see your greatness rather than the things you've decided are absolutely wrong with you? Because what percentage of your day do you spend seeing the things that you've decided are so wrong with you rather than the things that are actually brilliant about you? Does that make sense? Again, this is a really big conversation. I'm like, oh my God, it's already 7:25. Awesome. So the other question I wanted to touch on as well, which is kind of like a continuation from this, is there was another question that sent in that said, can you speak about acknowledging what I'm great at and creating ease when promoting myself? And I kind of just spoke to acknowledging what you're great at. But the creating ease with promoting yourself, again, this is like a big conversation, but what most of us do is we kind of come to this conclusion where we think there's like this perfected vision or image of ourselves, that if we present that to the world, it'll get people to like buy into whatever we're offering. But that's not actually true. And this is where you have to really be willing to impose. How many of you are actually willing to impose yourself on other people and actually bleed into other people's worlds? It's like, no. The thing is, like, in order to have ease with promoting yourself or promoting anything that you're offering, or literally even having that like conversation with someone that might be challenging, it's like a willingness to show up in their world. It's a willingness to allow your universe to actually bleed into theirs. But most of us have this perfect excuse as to why we won't flow energy into other people's worlds. So again, this comes back to, if you're not willing to be imposing, you have to look at like, what judgment have you decided people will have of you? And what judgment of me am I avoiding? And what judgment of me am I defending that keeps me starving the world of me? Because again, bring it back to like what judgment you're avoiding, but what judgment you already have of you that you're utterly defending. Because the thing is, if you've decided you're, say, for example, like a shitty facilitator and you're defending that judgment, you will literally, is it at all real to you that you will literally avoid putting yourself out there, having conversations with you? Because what if that person turned around and said, oh my God, that just changed my life? You will no longer, again, have ease with defending that judgment that you have of you. So if you're willing to actually impose you, the thing is, you'd have the gift of you shared with everyone else. Are you willing to share the gift of you with everyone else? We have some nods. Some people that are like, I'm not sure I really enjoy this conversation because this is like bringing up all the things for me. So Lynn says, I was asking, what is the gift of me, or acknowledging I'm a gift for quite some time. I've stopped saying it as I'm not seeing a change and thinking I'm asking too much. Can you ask too much? One, you can't ask too much, but if you're not seeing a change for anything that you're asking, you have to be willing to ask, like, am I willing to receive this? One, am I willing to have the gift of me? But also two, where are you looking for the gift of you? Where are you looking for it to feel a certain way rather than you just being it? Because it doesn't feel like anything. When you're actually being the gift, it doesn't feel like anything and it doesn't look like anything. So if there's anything else on that, just let me know as well. So yeah, so as I was saying, this thing about imposing, like, is it all real to you that more of you in the world is actually a gift? Is it at all real to you that literally your energy out in the world is a contribution to every single person out there having more of themselves, if they choose it? And this is the thing, we are not for everybody. But how many of you are trying to like make yourself for everybody? And this is what I noticed myself doing. I was like, how do I make everybody like what I'm doing? How do I like modulate myself enough and say the thing that's going to get everybody to align and agree with me being an amazing person and a gift in the world? Because I wasn't willing to actually acknowledge that myself. So the thing is, like, what if the people weren't relevant? What if it wasn't relevant what they were willing to receive or not willing to receive? But how many of you are literally only willing to actually have your voice and say the thing if others receive it? How many of you, as soon as others don't receive it, literally go, oh, okay, I'm not showing up again. I'm not going to be present with my business again. I'm not going to say the thing again. So everything that is, and everywhere, you will only allow yourself to show up and be seen if others receive. Period. Will you just throw in and create that, please? Oh, right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all names, shorts, boys, povers, and beyonds. And everywhere you've all the parts and pieces of you've rejected, because others couldn't receive it. And every way you're using that to modulate your voice, will you destroy and uncreate that times a gazillion? Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, or name, shorts, boys, povits, and beyonds. So straight to the point again. Yes. I'm like, how do I get you free in 30 minutes? And then I'm like, well, that's not my job, but this is also something I'm working on. Okay, so before we finish, I just want to give you some pragmatic things about promotion, because a few people were kind of mentioning about promotion for them, their business. Like, so first of all, like everything, all of the above. And also you want to ask yourself, like, because a few people had sent in just recently questions about, let me find them. Talking, but I don't know who's talking. Maybe I'm just going to mute someone, but I don't know who that someone is. Hero, could you mute yourself, please, honey? Okay, I've muted you. I require a host for these. Okay, so someone had written in like that they have they become a bars facilitator last October. They put up a class, no one showed up. They're doing energy pools, posting on social media, but no one's willing to take a session or class with them. And someone else was saying, yeah, that they have this kind of contraction every time they actually begin to show up. So okay, so what I wanted to say to that is these are the questions that you can begin to ask yourself. Is really, if you have a business or if you're promoting yourself, the number one thing is to begin to look at like, what is your vision? What do you actually desire to invite people to with the voice you have in the world? What is that vision? So for example, if it's access bars that you're inviting people to, your vision might be to create more ease in the world. Your vision might be to create more joy in people's lives. Your vision might be to allow people to create a life they're actually excited to get out of bed for. So start looking at your vision and ask yourself, like, what is my vision? What do I desire to invite people to with this? For every class specifically, and then every kind of topic that you facilitate or, whatever it is. Ask yourself, what is that? What do I desire to invite people to? And do I value the vision? Do I value my being? Because the thing is, you might be desiring to invite people to experience more joy. That might be your vision, but are you actually choosing that? And like I was just mentioning before, like, do you lose connection to your vision because others don't acknowledge it, value it, or see it? And this is a big one for actually being willing to like put yourself out there and promote yourself. Do you lose connection to that vision if others don't acknowledge it, value it, or see it? So everything that is, and any way you lose connection to your vision because other people haven't acknowledged it, they don't value it, or they don't see it. You destroy and uncreate that, please. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, or name, shorts, boys, privates, and beyonds. So what if it wasn't your job to actually promote? Like, what if we just like remove the whole promotion thing? What if it was your job to engage people with the possibility that they've always known? What if you engage people in seeing a different possibility? And this is the thing, promotion is not going to work for humanoids. It's just literally not going to work. And do you notice when I even say that word, it's like your whole universe contracts around you. So what if your new target was like, what invitation can I be that invites to a different possibility? And what if that was the only result you actually looked for? Because if you lose your vision or you're unwilling to show up and be seen when people don't choose what you have to offer, then you're going to be screwed. Like, I can just tell you now, you're absolutely going to be screwed because there's going to be times that things don't work. So what requires to actually be bigger than everything else, be bigger than other people's judgments, be more relevant than the rejection you've made more real and true, is what do I desire to invite the world to? And so this is what I keep coming back to. And this is a massive part of being willing to have your voice in the world, is your voice is what you actually desire to invite others to. So for me, particularly like with this whole thing about like having your voice and receiving yourself, and like the topic of relationships, I facilitate these two topics very differently to most people. And they're kind of my least attended classes. However, I know that literally what I'm being with these topics is literally changing the world just by my willingness to talk about it. And it doesn't matter about how many people choose, and it doesn't matter about the results like that are created outside of me, meaning the money, the people, whatever that looks like. I'm connected to my vision. And anytime I start judging myself or making myself wrong, like this isn't working, maybe I don't want to talk about this anymore, I bring myself back to, what is my vision? What am I here to connect people to? And what if you did everything to create a future? For the future and possibility that you know you can have? And what if you didn't actually require validation for it this lifetime? Which is also like, ah! So everywhere you're unwilling to have your voice in the world, unless you are validated by showing up appropriately, we just throw in and create that times a gazillion. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, or name, shorts, boys, povits, and beyonds. So what if it wasn't about promoting, and it wasn't about having ease with, like, it wasn't about promoting. And what if it really come down to, again, what do you desire to invite the world to? And are you willing to go forward and speak about that, whether anybody receives it this lifetime or not? That's scary or what? You're all like kind of like, that kind of excites me, and at the same time, like, I'm not sure I like what you're saying right now. Does anyone have any questions before we finish? And Helen, does that like gift you more ease with your question? Or is there anything else you want to add?
That was beautiful, Ash. I'm so much freer. Yeah, so much more space with my gift to the world. This week's been phenomenal. Initially, it was all about numbers. Not getting any money for what I was doing. But the gift that I have been for the people that have showed up to my classes, it's incredible. Like, even one is my neighbor. They're Indian, and she just poked her head up over the fence earlier, just with an Indian sweet that her mother just made, to thank me for the class. And it was like, oh, so beautiful. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, like, what most people don't recognize is have that. Begin to acknowledge like that gift that you're being, and you can ask, hey, universe, can I have the money now, please? Because the interesting thing is, like, when you're unwilling to ask a question and even impose on the universe, like, your unwillingness to ask the universe questions, or your unwillingness to ask questions, is your unwillingness to impose on the universe. When you're unwilling to impose on the universe, you're actually unwilling to have your voice. That's like kind of a telltale sign of like your unwillingness to actually have your voice, because you're not willing to impose on what you actually desire. So literally start asking, like, hey, universe, can I have the money now, please? And this is the thing, like, each choice you make for consciousness will pay you in dividends. I 100% promise you this. every choice you make for consciousness. So what if it also didn't have to be linear? Like literally for me, I'm connected to my vision. I know I desire to create a world where people actually receive themselves, actually get the gift of themselves, actually have themselves, which is what's like literally underpins the not having money, the not having ease with business. Like everything comes back to this receiving of self. So I'm connected to that vision and I'm like, okay, cool. Everything I be in the world is speaking to that possibility. And then I don't make it about the classes and I don't make it about the numbers and I don't make it about the money. What I then do is I know without a shadow of a doubt that each choice I make for consciousness, each choice I make to invite somebody to more consciousness, to more of themselves, I know consciousness pays me in dividends. And then what happens is like I get registrations and people signing up for like other random classes and other things. And then I get gifted things. And this is what I mean. Like, what if you didn't have to look for the only way of like, okay, well, I said this, I did this live about this class, but then no one signed up to that class. That is literally a way to screw yourself over royally, if that's the only thing you're looking for. What if you're willing to go, I'm speaking to what I know. I'm literally inviting people to something that's so different and something that's actually possible. I know with my willingness and choice to speak and invite people to greater consciousness, I know consciousness will pay me in dividends. Are you willing to have that? Are you willing for it to be that easy? Some of you have heard the story, and I'll say this before we finish. September 2021, a friend and I did a road trip around regional Queensland, Australia. We spent 2 weeks on the road offering free bar sessions, wandering the streets, handing out flyers, speaking to everyone we could actually find. We ended up doing 2 bars classes, but there wasn't that many people that chose it. And so 2 weeks, I wasn't focused on kind of the rest of my business. I wasn't focused on pulling in money, creating money, and I had a talk to the entities class at the end of the month, and I hadn't even been present with it. And literally that choice to go on that road trip, that month I generated, and still to this day, generated more money than I've ever generated in a month since having my business for the last 4 years. 2 weeks of that, I wasn't doing anything but inviting people to a greater possibility. I wasn't technically making money, yet somehow that month money come in from everywhere. And the talk to the entities class I did, I wasn't present with until about a week before. And I was like, oh my God, no one signed up to the talk to the entities class. I completely forgot about that. I was so enjoying my life and so enjoying inviting people to like the gift that the access bars can be. And literally then like I had 10 people sign up for that talk to the entities class, like in that week, just randomly. I didn't even do anything. But I knew in that moment, I was like, that's that thing. Consciousness pays you in dividends. If you're willing to actually show up and be seen and include you in the world, oh my God. Not only how much more will you receive of yourself, how much more will the universe and can the universe gift you? Because if you're making yourself invisible to others by not showing up, by not being seen, by not having your voice, you also make yourself invisible to everything and everyone, including the universe. What gift are you? Truly, that you haven't been willing to acknowledge? What if this entire conversation had nothing to do with anybody else, but it was all about how much you're actually willing to receive of yourself? Are you willing to melt the walls and barriers you have up that literally are holding the judgments and the lies and inventions you have about you in place? Because let me tell you, when you start letting you out and you start having people adore you and are grateful for you and receive you, because let me tell you, that will occur, you cannot not have more of yourself. So my beautiful friends, I hope that's been a contribution that went, again, longer than 30 minutes. And that's totally okay. Let me know if there's anything else I can contribute to you with this conversation. And yeah, Eamon said that's uncomfortable, but like, honestly, what if that's the thing? What if that's the thing that we're like scared and fearful of more than anything, is actually receiving ourselves? Like literally, what if that's the thing that underpins everything, including relationships? How many of us create crappy relationships and invite people into our life that don't receive us to literally keep us from receiving ourselves? And I could literally go on about this topic forever. So if you want more about that, you can do my relationship class. But truly, like, this is what I uniquely know is like all the crazy choices we make to stop ourselves from having us. And that's what I desire to invite the world to, is something completely different when it comes to that. And what if it's not scary as you think it is? I'm just saying, but it's just out of control. So anyway, we will finish there. Someone did ask me about the Right Voice for You classes. This is the Right Voice for You classes. It's 3 days of like basically learning to have ease with showing up and being seen. And the way I facilitate it has nothing to do with singing. I cannot sing. You don't have to be a singer to be a facilitator. And I have one. I've just actually posted one. I'm doing one in Canada. Never been to Canada before, so I'm actually doing one in Canada at the very beginning of July in Montreal. And I'll probably do one in Europe when I go there in 2 months' time. And I've got one in a few days' time in Noosa, Australia. So if you want to fly to Australia. But yes, I'm going to Canada because I realized that I can go to Canada because I can just choose that. So we'll see. Okay. For those of you that don't know, I do this every week. So you've got the links. You'll receive a 24-hour and 2-hour reminder email before every single call, every single Monday at the same time. And there's 5 recordings that if you haven't listened to, you can go back and listen to. So I'm grateful for you all. Thank you for being such a gift. And what would it take for you to really, really, really acknowledge that you having your voice is actually contributing more to the world? Bye, guys.